This week, a Saab special. Since the Swedish independent was taken over by General Motors, the company has striven to achieve the image and quality of BMW, Audi and Mercedes. This week we look in detail at Saab's legendary 900 and 9000 replacements, the 93 and 95.
Today's busy executive is faced with some pretty tough decisions, not least of which is which executive car they should choose to adorn their driveway and transport them in style and comfort from one high-powered business meeting to another. The competition for their business is extremely fierce, and the shopping list seems to be growing and growing. The list may be large, but it seems to be dominated by the Germans. Audi's A6 is a sleek and stylish statement. Mercedes-Benz have combined elegance and quality in their C-Class. And of course, top of every executive wish list is 5 Series engineering and performance from BMW. But there's now a neutral country hot on the heels of the Germans. Sweden is going for the executive car market with all cylinders firing. Volvo have always been known for their reliability and safety, but now they're also doing well in the design stakes thanks to the S70's handsome lines. And the latest attack from the land of snow and vodka has come from Saab in the shape of the 95, the replacement for the 9000, and as the name suggests, the car that Saab hope will lure car buyers away from the BMW 5 Series. Pretty ambitious, but Saab feel that the 95 has what it takes to take it to the top of the executive chart. There are 3 models to choose from. Top of the range is a 3-litre V6, there's a 2.3 litre, and this, the entry-level 2 litre at £22,000. But this is the slightly more luxurious SE model, and that'll set you back 24.5 grand on the road. But hang on just a minute before you sign the cheque. There's a few things to add to that. £1,220 for the 4-speed automatic gearbox. Leather seats, £1,150. A Saab driving pack with cruise control for £510. And for the luxury of keeping your posterior warm on those cold winter mornings, a cheque for £230 for heated seats. Bringing you to a grand total of just under £28,000. Wow, enough to put you behind the driving seat of a very well-equipped 5 Series or even the Mercedes CLK. So the Saab isn't cheap, but if you can do away with the extras, like the leather and the warmth for your posterior, then you do get a good list of standard equipment. To name but a few, there's driver, passenger and side airbags, electric windows and mirrors, air conditioning, a steering wheel that adjusts for both height and reach, and an excellent stereo. The feeling here inside the cabin is that everything has been designed for people who spend an awful lot of time behind the wheel. Saab, of course, are famed for the comfort of their seats, and work with orthopaedic specialists at the design stage has ensured that these are as comfortable as your favourite armchair. The instrument panel is typically Saab, curving around the driver, putting everything within easy reach. One particularly nice touch is that the instrument panel can be dimmed at night, so it doesn't distract the driver on those long, tiresome journeys home. The driver does have plenty of space, as does the passengers, and there's an awful lot of luggage room for those executive briefcases and other stuff. All around the car are plenty of cubby holes, there's even a map holder, and of course the obligatory cup holders. A couple of irritating points with a rather poor visibility in my particular driving position, and the sound of the indicators that drove me absolutely mad. On the face of it, the 95 doesn't look strikingly different to its predecessor, but the changes are ones that you feel rather than see. General Motors have done a deal with Saab to supply the chassis for the 95. It's based on the Vauxhall Vectra, but Saab engineers have adapted it so that it puts the Vectra's ride and handling to shame. The 95 is smooth and supple and handles well on most roads, but it is a bit let down on sharp bends where it feels rather front heavy and suffers from body roll. The 95's engine range has been updated from the old 9000s. Both the 2 and the 2.3 litres get their power from 4 cylinders and a light pressure turbo. Now Saab call their engines Eco-Power, standing for ecology, economy and power. And power it certainly has. There's plenty of torque and the engine really doesn't have to be revved too hard to respond. Good soundproofing ensure that the engine stays quiet, giving you a smooth and a relaxing ride. But what lets the ride down is the automatic gearbox, which just doesn't seem to work in harmony with the engine. It seems to lunge the car forward as it changes, and the 4 speeds just simply aren't enough. A far better deal is to save yourself the £1,200 and stick to the manual option instead. This is without doubt a car you'd be happy to carry around the family in, as it's just packed with safety features. There's ABS, all-round airbags, anti-submarine seats, a head restraint to protect you from whiplash, side impact protection, and there are no less than 8 patented safety features on it. The Saab 9.5 is a well-equipped and comfortable car. It's practical and it's safe. It has a powerful, refined engine. You know that buying the 9.5 would be a sensible choice. It's a car that wouldn't let you down. But it's just not very exciting. It's extremely unadventurous, and it suggests that the kind of person who chooses to buy a 9.5 is a bit boring. The Saab 9.5 will give the 5 Series a run for its money, until it gets to the one point that sits at the top of every executive's wish list: image. You can't help feeling that instead of high-powered business meetings and a fast track to the top, the 9.5 is heading for an early retirement and afternoons on the golf course.
It's ironic that just as Saab's #1 competitor Volvo choose to launch the S80 as a saloon only, there is no estate, Saab make a return to the load-lugging sector after an absence of 20 years with a 9.5 estate. Mind you, I might still get to have a go in the jet version because Saab chose to launch their new estate at RAF Leeming. Saab say that they've designed the car with an eye to practicality before pure image, but despite that, I think it looks fantastic. They're all new pillars from the rear passenger door back, but the sloping C-pillar, well, that's typically Saab. And it also gives the 9.5 quite a sporty, rakish look, which is just as well, because size-wise, the 9.5 estate falls somewhere between the tiny little sporting estates, the one where you have to trade in the Retriever for a Jack Russell to fit the dog in the back, and the full-blown load luggers. There are some nice luxury touches too, but those as well are designed with an eye to practicality first. For instance, these roof rails, they're not an adornment, they are real. They will support a load if you find that the boot space isn't enough. And there are some nice touches in the boot space. Open the tailgate, these red lights at the top are a repeater of the tail lights, which means if you're loading at night and you obscure them, people can see you, you're safer. And these white lights are here to illuminate the whole of the load area, make sure you don't trip over anything or step in a puddle. So, on the road, is the big Swede a turnip? Saab make no wild claims about the 9.5 estate being a sports car, but they do point out that they spent a lot of time and a lot of effort making it handle as well as a saloon car on the road, and it's time well spent, because it does. It's very poised on the road, it's actually a very pleasurable drive. There's none of the boomy noise that's usually associated with an estate car either, as a result of the big space at the back. It's very well insulated from that. It's available from launch with 2 engines, the 2-litre and the 2.3. That's 150 and 170 brake horsepower. Both are Saab's light pressure turbos. Very soon it'll be joined by the 3-litre V6, that's an asymmetric twin turbo, and should make it a bit of a stonker. Now, I have said this before, but that's never stopped me from saying anything again, so I shall. Saab, for me, will always be associated with bearded people in goat wool jerseys whose diet means, well, put it this way, you wouldn't want to share a car with them on the school run in the morning. Vegetarians. I'm not being cruel to Saab when I say this, and it's certainly not a reflection on their current range. It's simply that when I was at school, the Saabs I remember from them were all kind of beige, or maybe orange, and blobby in shape. And in updating the childhood memories of the likes of me, Saab do have a bit of a problem in that most of the cars from then are still around today. Building a car that lasts forever can be a bit of a double-edged sword for a manufacturer. It's great to boast about the fact that cars go on for millions of miles, but anybody trying to sell a product whose lifespan is measured in millennia faces a bit of a problem in persuading people to come back and buy another one. That's why British Leyland invented the concept of built-in obsolescence. Sell somebody a car that's good for 40,000 miles, and then sell them another. and another and another. You'd need carbon dating to pinpoint the original birth date of some of the Saabs still around today. But back to the present. Life is about compromises, ask any American president, and the Saab 9.5 estate compromises very well. It mixes the better qualities of a sporty estate with the genuine practicality of its more cumbersome competitors. OK, as a drive, it doesn't tear the ground up, but there won't be any skins left on rice puddings, and it does drive much like a saloon. At a shade under £24,000 for the 2-litre engine version and a shade under £27,000 for the 2.3, it competes very well against the likes of Audi, BMW and Volvo, the immediate competitors, on price, as it does on specification. But if you are looking for performance in a small, sporty estate, then I'd say take a look at something like Subaru's Legacy, which is more powerful, it's actually cheaper in some instances, and of course it does have the advantage of that permanent four-wheel drive. But if you really want to go Swedish, then the Saab 9.5 estate is definitely worth a look.
I thought I was here for a standard road test, but apparently I've been headhunted for CI5. The producer recruits TV presenters. I signed my work experience papers and I'm raring to get spying. I'm not really suitably attired for this lark. That's more suitable. All I need now is Jane Seymour on my arm and a good car. Mercedes, Benz, BMW, Audi. Too Blofeld for me. Aston Martin, Ferrari. All these footballers have them. Or something perhaps a little more subtle. Perfect! Blimey, folks. This is their third new model in a year. Not used to this from Saab. Looks like any 9.5 with new wheels. There's the giveaway. Subtle enough for you? Glad to see that this Griffin badge is not on the boot. That'll fox a few hasslers. Nice one, Saab. 9.5? I'm not a number! I'm a free man! Got the KGB list of pool cars here. Mercedes, Benz E-Class, BMW 528 ISE, Audi 2.8 Quattro. They're all making a rather large statement to the world. Too noticeable. That's why I've chosen the Saab. That's why I'm working for Uncle and not the KGB. This Saab's got a brilliant engine, 3-litre V6, 24 valve, 200 brake horsepower, plenty of power for those good car chasers. Makes a lovely noise as well. Very comfy leather seats, heated as well, perfect for those covert operations up in deepest Russia. Brilliant gearbox, 3 mode settings, normal, sport and winter. Perfect for any mission in any part of the world. This Saab's got all the toys that a man in my position would expect to find. Air conditioning, traction control, heated seats, as I mentioned earlier, and cruise control, but in fact it doubles up as a missile launcher. Nobody would know though, except me of course, and the chaps back at base. This is definitely the car for me. Nobody's noticed me at all. Perfect for this spying game. Thrush will never spot me in this.
Don't like its vulgar American grille, that won't impress the ladies. But it does shoot a huge jet of acid. And an escape hatch. Camera's blown my cover. This is Richard Fiennes going deep, deep undercover working for CNN. Perhaps I'll find Terry Hatcher.
Saab, a name synonymous with safety, reliability, great big bumpers, ABBA, and of course, Sweden. Well, some of those items are behind them because Saab have come a very long way in the past few years and build some very desirable cars now. Cars like this, the new 9.3. Now, hang on a minute, you're thinking, this is a 900 surely. Well, it's not. This is the all-new Saab 9.3, and it's had major revisions over the 900, or so Saab tell us. Now, I've never quite been able to make my mind up about Saab cars. Don't get me wrong, they make some very good cars, and I've considered buying one or two over the years, but never quite been able to take the plunge for some reason. Maybe because you think they're not quite in the same league as, say, BMW or Mercedes, but perhaps that's where Saab are actually the winners in all this.
Well, when the stockholders asked me to come to Saab, their objectives were pretty clear, and that was to increase the value of the brand and make money. So I've been focusing really hard on understanding the business strategy, understanding the new products like the 9.5 and how we were executing them and whether we understood who our customers were and how well we were meeting those customer requirements. So those things have been pressing very hard on my mind to really understand that for the first 6 months.
Now look at this, surely the star of the Saab range, the new 9.3 convertible. It looks visually very similar to the old 900 convertible, but there are one or two changes that you might spot if you look very closely at it. But it is a beautiful looking car, very desirable. The hood is simplicity itself. The same hood that Mercedes used on their cabriolets and convertibles from years gone by. And it's so simple, it all folds neatly back into the rear, the windows go down, and it's open top motoring at its best.
This is the Saab 9.3, the latest evolution in the long-running Saab 900 series. It costs between £15,000 and £30,000. This is the Saab Griffin, a multi-role jet fighter. It costs between $15 and $20 million. The two are related. This is another of those evolutions we hear so much about. In other words, it's more than a set of new plastic trim stuck on an outdated product, but it's not quite an entirely new car. The old Saab 900 series has been around for thousands of years. Just think of some of those ancient beige or sandy coloured ones you still see happily trundling up and down the motorway full of beards and woolly pulleys. The things really do last forever. Some of those still bear dents and scars from collisions with asteroids when the Earth's atmosphere was still young. I can remember visiting a Saab dealership some years ago when some friend or other was taking their ailing Hulk in for a service. And while I was there, a customer came in, started proudly boasting about their 250,000-mile Saab. Nobody batted an eyelid, nobody even looked up. They all do that, the things go on forever. The poor dealer, I felt sorry for him really. It must be a bit like selling the everlasting light bulb. You flog people one and then hope that, well, they drop it and come back and buy another. There is something slightly odd about the 900 series though, and that's just how Saab like it. They've deliberately created a cult car out of what is really just a range of well-built family hatchbacks. They've become an enthusiast's car. They're big, powerful, quite fast, but somehow still affable and approachable. A bit like watching your favourite auntie slide behind the controls of a jet fighter. You wouldn't necessarily feel intimidated, but you'd sure as hell want to see what happened next. Potent, but not directly threatening. That's why old ladies and vegetarians can drive them. 900 series enthusiasts are as slightly offbeat and quirky as the cars themselves. In creating this, the 9.3, and that is 9.3, not 93, which is how many years it's expected to last, exterior changes have been limited to just a few light touches of makeup. There's a new grille with a wing-shaped centre profile, making an obvious reference to Saab's aeronautical heritage, and new bumpers at the front and rear, and a subtly changed tailgate, losing that rather ungainly concave profile at the bottom. It adopts a slightly more conventional shape, though it's definitely still unmistakably a Saab. And as for that shape, well, you either love it or hate it. One thing it certainly isn't is bland. I think it looks fantastic. It's the same story inside. The overall effect, for me, is a bit like looking at it through a fisheye lens. Things suddenly loom up from nowhere. For instance, the windscreen, because it changes profile so much from the centre and out to the sides, if you stare straight ahead and then move your head around to the left or right, it seems to move closer. Well, it does to me anyway. Try it sometime. It really is a cockpit feel inside the cabin though, deliberately done of course, in every bit of Saab. The dash is heavy and practical, but it also tends to wobble a bit like the instrument panel on a helicopter or an old taxi, and that would get on my nerves. But to get to grips with the controls, then it all starts to make sense. There's actual writing on the buttons, real words. And the radio has got knobs as big as your fingers. Also, instead of making the hazard warning button the size of a glowing red plastic dinner plate and then hiding it under the passenger side of the dash, Saab have simply made it small, smart, drawn a relevant symbol on it, and then put it where you can reach it. Genius. You don't have to be naked in a sauna combing your beard or completely out of your tree to appreciate the slightly quirky Scandinavian appeal of the new Saab 9.3. It retains the oddball feel and nature of its predecessor, but is actually a practical and competent family hatchback or executive express, if you like, the sensible Swede, that does say a bit more about its owner than perhaps some other European blandmobiles. As for what it does say, well, I can't be too sure, but to quote the well-known Swedish proverb, "Mange bleke små blir en större å," or many small streams have become a big river.